Are you paying too much in taxes? Elevated Tax and Accounting is a firm that specializes in tax planning and strategy to minimize your tax bill. Elevated Tax consult with you on tax strategy throughout the year, so no more waiting until the end of the year and hoping for the best. As a business owner, you know your sole focus should be spent working on your business, not in it. Outsourcing gives you the time to concentrate on the core reasons you started your company, to create and innovate a top-tier product and generate profits. Elevated Tax and Accounting, elevating you and your business with a modern professional touch.
Our entire team at Ryan and Miller appreciates every client that comes to us. Getting to help them one-on-one with their individual case means the world to us. So thank you to all of our clients who contact us and come to us for their legal services. We appreciate it.
Well, time for our latest Big Sky Spotlight as we make the rounds around the Big Sky Conference off-season style. I thought it was a good time to touch base with Montana State because yesterday they made the official announcement of several names you've probably been hearing if you follow anything on social media, but sort of a conglomeration of an announcement yesterday with 5 new incoming recruits to the Bobcat football program. This time of year, it seems like recruiting never quits, but Brent Vigen, the head coach of the Bobcats, here to talk about that and also other maybe some other stuff about the offseason. But Coach, first of all, thanks for being here. How you doing?
Doing well. Yeah, it's great to be back at it. Our guys returned yesterday for summer workouts. That was really the conjunction with the release yesterday to let this team continue on into the summer and kind of take its new form as it did.
Well, it's interesting. We were talking about this on the show yesterday, or I guess earlier this week. For so long, it was always one signing day in February that you were kind of building towards, and then maybe you'd add some mid-year guys here or there. But now there's an early signing period, a later signing period. Then, you try to get guys that are mid-year. Then you have some guys that maybe leave after spring, so you got some new roster spots. So how do you sort of treat this latest newer period, the one from post-spring ball to when you report here for summer workouts from a recruiting standpoint?
Well, you're constantly building your roster, right? That's where you start. And really, I guess, this period through May and really the second semester for us was a reflection of kind of where we felt our roster was as far as returners mid-season. I think we felt pretty good about, our roster moving forward mid-season. We played as late as we did. We had a few more losses than we thought we might. But also we played on the 6th. School started on the 14th. So turning that around would have, I think, to bring in all kinds of numbers would have been, I think, more of a mistake than anything else. We did bring a couple transfers in that we were moving on to some degree at the beginning of the second semester, but it was really a long play to say, okay, when we get out of the second semester, we'd like to add a receiver, we'd like to add a running back, we'd like to add a corner. And we did that. And obviously the quarterback thing was moving too. Justin had visited us the week of the South Dakota semifinal game. So, it's always moving. And then I think you also can make a reaction then to your spring ball. What does your spring ball look like? Do you feel good about maybe a bunch of those returning guys that I alluded to, going back to mid-season? And by and large we did. So yeah, here we are. We've added 5 more names, and there's maybe potential to still add 1 at the most. But really, the greater statement is we're continuing to build it from the ground up. High school guys that come here and develop and make their way.
You mentioned the timing. You guys played the national championship game, and then school starts, what, a week later? I mean,
Yeah.
6-7 days later. So that's not a lot of time if you're going to try to fill in some blanks, especially if you had guys leave, like you guys did have a couple that left. So what do you think of that, though? Because obviously you want to be playing in Frisco in January every single year, but it seems like a disadvantage in that element of recruiting because there's other teams that maybe have been able to recruit the portal for 4, 5, 6 weeks when you only have 4, 5, 6 days.
Yeah, that's why, again, trying to be ahead of it, October, November, and say, okay, what positions do we feel like that's going to be the route we want to go? And, for us, we decided quarterback was going to be one of them. So we had a visit, like I alluded to back in December. And then safety was potentially another one. We had a visit there. Ultimately, we brought in a couple candidates at mid-year, but otherwise, yeah, to react at that time and turn anything around within a week at a disadvantage. So again, your ability to predict, the guys that might depart is a key key element. And we were probably surprised by a couple again, and it wasn't a deal where we wanted to make a mistake in the moment. So that let's play the long game and figure this out through the course of the semester. So, how does that change moving forward? I don't know, because the complicated thing is the window is the window. Your time to visit them prior to the semester starting is a really condensed time. Until there's some kind of change relative to the second semester, that's going to be complicated for everybody because you got the holidays smack dab in the middle where, recruiting has never been a big part of that stretch. And I think we're going to continue to do everything we can to not make it a recruiting time between Christmas and New Year's. So the calendar is complicated, and there's no easy fix. I think if there was an easy fix, it would have been fixed. And the second portal window in the spring, while there's been talks of going away from it, that hasn't happened yet. So, until that does change, we'll have this second wave of recruiting that is coming out of spring ball, and yeah, you just got to keep evolving and for how much you want to stay ahead of it, there's plenty of reactionary moves that are part of our recruiting these days.
Join Town Pump's Pump It Up Rewards Plus program and never pay full price for fuel again.
Save 5 cents on every gallon every day at any Town Pump across Montana.
Plus, earn and redeem points on your favorite in-store items to get free stuff with our clubs.
Stop in and pick up a rewards card. Download the Pump It Up Rewards Plus app today.
Or visit townpump.com/rewards to register and start saving.
Town Pump. Right down the road. Pump it up. Oh, yeah.
So will you marry me in your future? Or maybe you do it all over again. Hi, I'm Brian Toon with Jewelry Design Center, inviting you to come see the largest selection of Will You Marry Me in the state of Montana. The brightest diamonds of every shape and size, unique settings built to last, and skilled jewelers on site offering free sizing and maintenance for life, because that's how long we want to be your jeweler. Jewelry Design Center in Missoula, on Brooks, across from the Montana Club.
Brent Vigen joining us here on the Big Sky Spotlight. Nuanez now ESPN Radio, or maybe you're watching on the Big Sky Breakdown podcast series. Last big picture question for you, then we'll talk about some of these new additions. When it comes to, obviously you want to get to know these guys as much as you possibly can, football, but also otherwise. I know that's a big part of your program at Montana State. So how do you go about vetting potential transfer additions or even high school recruits at this point, and sort of figuring out their personalities and if they fit into what you want within the structure of your program?
Yeah, ideally the high school model can be a long play. It can be the play that still does include multiple visits, getting to know them individually, getting to know their families, getting in their high school, getting great information from not only the high school coach but people in the high school. Not that it always happens that way, but hopefully, especially within our region, within the state of Montana in particular, that can be the case. Now, on the transfer side, to think there's going to be a lot of long-term development of a relationship, you're kidding yourself. So, you still try to figure out any connections you might have, whether that's a coach at the place that they came from, a high school tie some way, somehow. It's certainly helpful with guys that you've recruited, like Justin Lamson. For me, I recruited him back, it seems like a long time ago when I was still at Wyoming, but we had that previous relationship developed. But that's not going to be the case all the time either. So you just try to work as quickly as you can, try to get face to face as fast as you can, and get a good feel. And that's not a perfect science by any means. I think we've referred to it, I think everybody does, kind of as speed dating, which I think we all know is probably not a real good deal. So do the best you can, and ideally for us, those opportunities are going to be limited each and every year because we have the next guy generally coming up through our program.
We'll start with Justin Lamson. Then when it comes to these new signees, he's a guy that's sort of been in the ethos that people have been talking about, him coming to Montana State. But you mentioned you recruited him way back at Wyoming. What did you like about him then? How have you seen him evolve now? And what do you like about adding him to the Montana State program?
Yeah, getting to know him a little bit and watching him, as a high school player, felt like he had the dual threat ability. Really was more of a thrower and was really effective. Just liked, generally speaking, his competitive nature. Seemed like a real intelligent young man. Loved kind of the football background within his family. His dad being an ex-college and NFL guy, and then his brother, I think, was probably at Davis at that time or just had went to Davis. So I just there was a lot of good to just the complete package. And then, it was the COVID year, so I still remember. I mean, he came to Laramie, and I couldn't even talk to him. I would look out the window and gave him a wave, I guess, as he drove by my office. But shortly thereafter, I think his interest in was I went to Syracuse and that's where he ended up going. So we obviously moved on, but kept tabs on him, and then knew he had gone to Stanford, and when Troy had gotten that job, Troy Taylor did, and I know he'd played a bunch there. So when his name popped up, in the portal, late part of fall, it certainly piqued our interest.
So for people who have never seen the portal, I think they think of it as like this ethereal, weird thing. It's just a database of information, right? But
Right.
do you have somebody like this might be a stupid question, but do you have somebody that gets alerts or something? Like when a guy's name pops in the portal, how long does it take you and your staff to like notice
It's really a matter of monitoring it.
checking it all the time, I'm sure.
Daily. And then I think social media wise,
Right.
a lot of, I mean, that becomes your alert in a lot of cases. And then there's different recruiting sites that at least follow the FBS side of it pretty closely. So yeah, there's no, you can buy different software too, I think, to probably get access to information maybe a little quicker than we do. But I think we feel pretty good about at least how we monitor it and being able to keep tabs on who's entering.
Yeah. Tell me about Chris Long, wide receiver transfer from Rutgers. I was trying to think if I'd ever heard of a transfer from Rutgers to the Big Sky Conference. He might be a first one when it comes to that. How'd that relationship start?
Yeah, receiver was that long play through the course of the semester. I think we were, Coach Mix in particular, taking over that position. We vetted quite a few as we went through it. We were looking for an experienced, older guy, whether he had 1 or 2 years left. That was kind of what we sought in this opportunity. And there's all kinds of scenarios out there for people transferring, and some can work, some can't. And I say that, especially those older guys that have not graduated, that becomes complicated. So saying that, there was a couple kids that were in the portal, but we couldn't move to get them in as late as they were as far as their approach to graduation. And then Chris came up, and Chris was graduating, and so that allowed us a few weeks, if not even a month, to start building a relationship. I think initially, when he went in the transfer portal, he intended to go to Syracuse, but because he wasn't graduating mid-year, ultimately that didn't happen. So he's been in the portal now, or had been in the portal going back to early December, I believe. So I think, needless to say, I think it lined up for us a guy that has a year that's done some things. He's certainly flashed over an extended period of time at Rutgers. Never got traction necessarily as the guy. Chris is a competitive young man that I think he'd like to be the guy, but I think he also really identified with our program and the success we've had and how we go about things. So he rolled in this past weekend, and really excited to get him going and see where he fits within that receiving core.
Arrested. And now you're wondering, do I need to hire a criminal defense attorney? And the answer is yes, you do. This is not the time to gamble with your future and with your freedom. Here at Ryan & Miller, we have over 40 years of experience with criminal defense, and we take it very seriously that we protect our clients' rights. So if you have any questions and want to know how our team can help you, make sure to give us a call today.
Cash One Pawn has the most extensive inventory of any pawn shop in Western Montana. Whether you're in the market for firearms, power tools, bows, video game consoles, or sunglasses, Cash One Pawn has the best deals around. And now Cash One Pawn gives you the ability to shop online from anywhere. Make CashOnePawn.com part of your shopping habits. Bryce Parker, a defensive back from Reno, do you look at him as more of a safety? Because you mentioned that was a priority.
We're looking at him as a corner. Yeah, we want it, ultimately in Andrew Pauldrill's departure, it was, that's why we wanted to get a corner. I know we feel really good about our young redshirt freshman corners, in particular. McMillan, Seth Johnson. Those guys had really good springs along with Carson Williams. But there's a level to Bryce where he brings his time at the junior college level, his time, even though he didn't play much at Nevada, that he just brings an older, mature presence there. So, and he's really looking for opportunity. And I think again, whether it's the stars aligning or it's really about, okay, what we're looking for, it matches up, and our opportunity matches up what he's looking for. And I really felt that pretty quickly with Bryce. He was coached by Joey Thomas last year, former Bobcat, and I think Joey had a lot of good positive things to say about Bryce. Even though he didn't play a lot, they had a good secondary there at Nevada, and I think he really that helped us along with just Bryce with who he was and what he was looking for.
And Kale Breslin from BYU, as cliche as this might sound, he looks like a running back that's going to fit in very well on your offense.
Yeah, that opportunity came about, really late in spring, and again, what we're looking for, ideally a younger guy, with Julius and Adam at the top of our depth chart. This isn't this need for this guy to come in and be um, anything right away. But I think at the same time, I hope we have an opportunity, what we've done with our running backs, that a lot of young guys would relish. And in Kale, there's a guy that I think I would say was highly recruited. It came down to BYU in Wisconsin for him. He goes to BYU mid-year, and he was hurt his senior year, an injury he's since recovered from, but really never got his opportunity to gain any traction at BYU. And he's there a semester and looking for a new opportunity. And Coach Firm, Josh Firm, our new running backs coach, was able to get to Vegas and meet with him and his parents and go to his high school and everything. And we really felt good about not only his ability, but then who he was as a young man. And he's hungry, and talented and young all at the same time. So we're excited about all that he has in front of him.
And then the last one, an interesting story. George Helms, who actually went to high school up in Big Sky, Montana, but then went to a prep school. I went to IMG Academy
Yeah.
and somehow managed to get to Elon, which is the other side of the world in the FCS, and now coming back close to home. So tell us about this kid. I'm sure he probably was on your radar at least a little bit when he was in high school.
Yeah, George played for Lone Peak out in Big Sky. They came to our team camp. George came to our individual camps. So he was definitely on our radar as a junior becoming a senior a few years back. I know he had the intention of already going to IMG at that time, and not that we lost track of him, but the opportunity just didn't present itself for us at that time. And out of the IMG opportunity, I think he did make the most of that. Going from playing small school ball in Montana to going to that program, which is certainly one of the more notable premier prep school type of opportunities in our country. And then he found his way to Elon, which from Florida isn't all too far, I suppose. So, but then he had a real urge to get back up this way, and it aligned where we had a roster spot at the running back position in particular. I think he's a guy that could contribute on special teams as well. So yeah, excited to have some representation from the Big Sky area up here in Bozeman.
Well, now that you have these guys on campus, what's the next sort of cycle look like? What do you hope to get out of these guys during this summer? I know you can have a little bit of contact, not much. So what's sort of the mode of operation between now and the open fall camp?
Well, the rules changed a couple years back where at minimum us coaches can work skill development with them. You go back only, I'd say, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever. You couldn't have any contact other than seeing them run around and lift weights. So at a minimum, we can be out there and have some skill development. And I think that is particularly important with the likes of Justin Lamson and Chris Long, in particular, just seeing those guys, seeing Justin throw it around and seeing Chris catch it and run routes and everything. So trying to, I guess, accelerate their understanding, especially as older experienced guys. And I really would throw Bryce Parker, I suppose, in that same realm on the defensive side. So trying to get them caught up as best you can between that skill development and then also just in the meeting room. We can allot some time to have position meetings as well. And, I think ideally by the time we get to fall camp at the end of July 31st is that first practice. It's not like they've just stepped onto campus. They'll have 2 months under the belt of learning and us getting a chance to learn, at least physically what we think they can do. I think the expectation would be for those older players at the very least to be right in the mix at those three positions. It'd be fun to see Kale develop and what that all looks like through the course of the summer. And then, same goes for George. So, the summer, I think there is chance for growth. There is a chance to learn quite a bit, both, for those young men to learn about, learn our scheme and just learn how we do things in general, get with Coach Heron in the weight room. And then also, I think for us as a staff to be able to, better evaluate where they might fit.
For a quarterback like Lamson, can he catch up during the summer months? I mean, that's obviously probably what you hope and expect of him.
Yeah, I sure hope so. I know, and this isn't his first time he's done this. His transfer from Syracuse to Stanford was also a summer transfer. I think for a freshman to come in June, I think it'd be near impossible, let alone when those freshmen come in January. I think it's really hard, but he's physically developed, so it's not a matter of that piece happening. He's been in, a couple different college offenses to this point. He's smart. He's a Stanford grad. That means something. So I think he can definitely get caught up, and he can be right in the mix with Chance Wilson and Patrick Duchesne in particular.
Well, it should be fun to follow. We appreciate you giving us an update here to get June kicked off. Thanks so much for being here today.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Go Cats.